been playing about a month, and he was just like reading every card I played, and of course he immediately stomped me. It was great. So here we are.
We're going to go into a match in progress right now, about to start, I should say. For those of you just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here for the Star City Games Open Series, and I am joined by the inimitable Evan Irwin.
Hi, how you doing?
On our right, we've got Tony Chu, and he is playing what appears to be an Esper version of Caw-Blade. Now, unlike many of these builds that run Sun Titan, he's running a Grave Titan.
Ooh.
And he's also joining Shaheen Sarani in the use of Hero of Bladehold. Most of the rest of this looks like it has a lot of the more traditional blue-white pieces mixed with some of the black-blue pieces. For example, Jerry Thompson's deck has Inquisition but does not have Tumble Magnet. This deck has both.
Yeah, this deck seems like he's tried to sort of fit everything in, because it's got 2 Tumble Magnets instead of the normal 3. It's got the 1 Day of Judgment, which he might have cut, or he might have cut a Tumble Magnet for. He's got 3 Mana Leaks instead of 4, but he does have a Doom Blade. He does have a Go for the Throat. He has 3 Preordain. It's like I see a lot of shaving down in this deck list.
In order to make this work, he's down to 3 Preordain. Like you said, 1 Day of Judgment.
Yeah.
On the other side of the table, I believe we are seeing a 60-card copy of, yes it is, 60-card copy of Patrick Sullivan's red deck from just a few weeks ago that top-8'd at the Star City Games in Edison, is that correct?
Yes, so sweet. I love Patrick Sullivan's work. The man has inspired me to run Burn in Legacy. I'm
right.
2-0 in the Legacy Challenge, super duper fun. And these are the decks that show you that there's more to red than just like play mountains, play burn spells, go. It's about crafting your game state.
We've got an opening here. Tony Chu winning the die roll. Opens with turn 1 Inquisition of Kozilek.
We're looking at a Burst Lightning, a Goblin Guide, another Burst Lightning, and then the third up. What's that card third up? His lands appear to be Arid Mesa, Scalding Tarn, and Mountain.
I can't quite tell what that third card is.
Let's see. Based on his deck list, it might be an Ember Hauler or a...
There we go, Stagger Shock.
So it takes the Goblin Guide, as expected. And now it's Anthony's turn, who plays the Arid Mesa.
Now, taking this Goblin Guide takes off so much of the brunt of Anthony's ability to attack.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so much time goes away. Tony Chu, land, pass, Mana Leak back.
Yeah, see, Anthony's hurting now because he really needed that turn 1 play to get his game started, essentially. Now Tony's just like, well, 2 turns, no plays, fine.
And I'm going to lay some random card.
Glacial Fortress into Squadron Hawk.
Yeah, the Hawk. Now, one of the things to notice, he's got that blue open, and that blue is representing on Spell Pierce, but there are not any Spell Pierces in this deck.
Yep. There are on the sideboard, but none in the main. So, but it's always nice to represent, to give the illusion that you may have something even if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, let's pretend, on the other hand, that if he were to have that Swamp Up, he might be representing a Disfigure, but that's a little bit less long-lasting, I think, in the impact of how this game might work out than representing for a Spell Pierce.
Absolutely. So, end of turn, Burst Lightning. And that drops Tony to 18. Anthony fetches up a Mountain with his Arid Mesa. To
the Dome. Now, you might ask yourself, why did he to the Dome that? I believe he's probably going to Stagger Shock the that Hawk.
Yeah, at this point, Anthony rides that line where you have to realize when it's correct to bolt them in the face or to actually remove their creatures. So, Scalding Tarn pass.
Day of Judgment in hand.
Tony has a stacked hand.
Nope, just going to take it. Stagger Shock the face for 4.
Standard Winbox number 11. Please come on up to the side.
Tectonic Edge.
Here comes another Hawk.
Tap Tectonic Edge and Glacial Fortress for the extra Squadron Hawk. He's got Mana Leak. He's got...
Now, I'm going to say that if he does this end of turn with the Stagger Shock, I guess I probably would have done it in my main phase. Just leaving myself open to the possibility of a counterspell here.
Which is probably what's going to happen.
He might just let it resolve.
Yeah, looks like he's just going to take it.
Yep.
I mean, at this
just
point,
giving him the option, though. I'm not sure if I like it.
I mean, he has to feel good about his, his sort of.
Tony's in great shape.
Yeah, Tony's like, yeah, whatever, sure, Stagger Shot. Well, why not? At this point, he's confident he'll be able to drop down Gideons. He'll have Day of Judgment.
We have seen when this deck was played in different places, because this got played a lot in Los Angeles, and it did quite well, that these decks were able to take people down from 15, no problem. But Anthony is trying to take him down from 20.
Sometimes that's tougher. So Anthony uses his Arid Mesa, and I'm sure he's going to fetch yet another mountain. He'll have 4 mountains total.
His most aggressive possible play here is Koth, but Tony does have a Man League hanging back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Anthony's going to run it into there. I think he's going to probably wait for the Gideon drop, but that's never sort of where you want to be, unfortunately, because they play Gideon, you play Koth. They're still ahead big time. So there is the Koth, which runs correctly into the Mana Leak.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold off for that Gideon, because by the time the Gideon comes down, the Koth actually doesn't beat the Gideon then. It just whaps into the... I mean, I saw you play against Gideon, it just whaps it and makes problems happen. Jace the Mind Sculptor, and he's doing a little bit of the insurance policy. Let's check your top of your library. That looks like a fine card to me, sir. You can have that one.
That's a very shiny island, and he bashes for 1. So he's keeping a Squadron Hawk back just in case of any haste shenanigans.
Yep.
But if
Goblin Guide plus a Bolts would have been bad.
Yep. A Hero of Oxford Ridge, however, would go right through that Squadron Hawk, but that doesn't appear to be what Anthony has. Anthony's got a couple.
A Burst and 2 lands.
Yeah, Burst.
Oh, what a terrible hand for him right now.
This is not where you want to be versus the control deck.
Yeah. One of my own critiques of Patrick Sullivan's build is, to my mind, it looks to me like Patrick Sullivan's deck could use a 25th land. But don't tell Anthony Vaughan that right now at this moment, as he's sitting on 5 and has got 2 more hanging around.
Wow. Unbelievable. So Tony uses the Brainstorm ability, feeling really good about his chances at this point.
Yeah, I would be happy to be in his shoes right now.
Oh, yeah. So he doesn't quite have the mana for Gideon, it appears. He only has 1 white mana. But he does play the Creeping Tar Pit. And there's Stoneforge Mystic.
Stoneforge Mystic, almost certainly getting one of, well, he's only got 1 choice. 1 of 2 Sword of Feast and Famines.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go. Sword of Feast and Famine, like, is completely unbelievable. I mean, when Wizards gave it to me, I think you instantly realized that the power of that card is the untapping, but the untapping basically gives you another turn, which is so huge. So incredible.
I remember when I saw the card, I thought, okay, this card is good. Maybe it's really good, but it'll be great if the untap ability is great, and that's the real test. And I wasn't sure. Right. And then the first time it got put into the Callblade deck, there we were shown.
It makes perfect sense. So Anthony burst lightninged Tony Chu at the end of his turn, it appears.
Looks like he's going for the Hail Mary to my mind, just like hoping that the top of his library shows him everything he needs.
Right. I mean,
there's another land, I think.
There's an Ember Hauler that he ripped.
Okay, there we go.
Which is fine.
That's fine. That's fine.
Tony's at 10 now. You know, Anthony's basically saying that, you know, all right, so Tony's effectively at 8, which means that Anthony has to rip 3 burn spells in a row. You know, ripping things like Plated GOP just feels so bad at this point.
Brainstorm. Tony Chu getting some more goodness. Looking for a white source, and there is a Marsh Flats there for both a shuffle and the white for Gideon.
Yeah.
And I've talked with Patrick Sullivan about this a lot. The card we least want to see, Gideon.
Just cannot win through that card. Like once the control deck gets to the point where they are dropping Gideon, you are getting to the point where you can no longer win this game. All right, so shuffling around his mana, trying to figure out exactly what he wants to do here.
1-2, equip it up.
There we go.
Any responses? Anthony says.
Oh man, his hand is so stacked. There's Hero of Bladehold. There's another Stoneforge, I think. There's a Gideon. Like that's incredible. Hero of Bladehold also seems fantastic.
Down to 9.
Yep, uses a Marsh Flats, getting the plains. Oh, it's not looking good for old Anthony.
The real problem for a red deck with a Gideon is that Gideon basically feels a lot like the best natural spring ever. Like you often are gaining 8 straight up, and then you get to gain more on top of it, and then it gets to kill your opponent with 6. You know, that's just a rough one.
And then like by the way, like you can also kill their creatures too. So
you can Royal Assassin it up.
So in come the Hawks with the blades, which untaps all the lands. So now he plays Hero of Bladehold.
Oh man. I'm looking at the sideboard wondering, you know, he's probably going to bring in Manic Vandal, but I don't know if that's right.
Yeah.
Talking with Patrick Sullivan about that, he's actually less confident about Manic Vandal in his sideboards these days.
Wow, that's impressive. I mean, he's got Perilous Mirror, Arc Trail, Manic Vandal, Ratchet Bomb, and Mark Community.
There we go. Scoops it up. There's not much you can do against that kind of a table. I mean, like we said, he actually had his opponent at a virtual 7 life. If he just sacks the Emberhauler, that's, 7 life. So let's pretend, for the sake of argument, right? We talked about how that deck could get somebody down from 15 to 0.
Yeah.
If he had gotten that 5 initial damage in, he would have had his opponent at virtual 2.
Which is still virtually not enough.
Well, no, but virtual 2 means he doesn't scoop there. Virtual 2
Oh,
means
virtual 2, absolutely.
He can draw in 3 more cards and see if a burn spell shows up, and that'll be the game.
Yeah. I mean, he gives himself, outs, essentially. I feel like that's what you need to do with the red decks. You need to figure out your outs. You need to figure out your path to victory. And sometimes it's a lot more hazy than, even the control decks when they seem a little bit more sort of esoteric, when you have to sort of play this thing which draws you these cards and you kind of sort of know what you need to see from those cards. But
yeah,
either way, it's it's tough.
I mean, a great example of the considerations that have to go. You talk about, like, say, an extended burn deck. I remember watching Brad Nelson in one of his very first video articles that he did for Star City Games, and he played red, and he just sleeved up one of the more common red lists, and he was like, I think what I've learned here is that what you want to do is you want to open with Figure of Destiny, and then on turn 2, cast your Goblin Guide. And that's not right. I mean, the thing is, the damage is the same. You get 4 damage, right?
Right.
But the thing is that in one case you definitely get your 2 damage, definitely.
Definitely.
And in the other case, you maybe get that damage.
Right. All right, I'm going to have to tag in Gavin. My legacy.
No, I love Gavin, but
I appreciate it. My
Mr.
legacy challenge round 3 is starting. I'm going to take that burn deck to 4-0.
Okay.
I'm taking it.
I hope that you do.
Thanks, man. I'll see you guys later. Sorry, Gavin.
Thank you for stepping in, Evan. And we're back.
Yeah, I've got Gavin Verhey joining me. No disrespect to you, my friend. I just I love having me some Evan Irwin next to me. He's always such a jovial, happy pleasure. So.
I mean, I love me some Evan Irwin too.
Okay, we've got Anthony Vaughan here and Tony Chu on the right. Anthony with Patrick Sullivan 60-card main deck of mono red from Standard. It's slightly different, just barely different version of the sideboard. Maybe 1 or 2 cards off from that version. And Tony Chu with Cawblade with some black, but not the Jerry T Cawblade. It looks kind of like a crossbreeding of Jerry T's Cawblade with the more common blue-white Cawblade with a touch of Shaheen Sarani. Not that I'm not sure that Shaheen had the actual direct influence, but
because of the 3 preordains.
Not because of the 3 preordains and the 2 Heroes of Bladehold.
So what it actually looks like to me when I saw this is it looked kind of like blue-black infused with blue-white, because you have the Grave Titan that the blue-black decks typically have. You have Temple Magnet, which is pretty standard now, and you have the black. Although to be fair, I guess you could just say that Esper Blade is blue-black infused with blue-white Cawblades. So
well, yeah, what I kind of view it like, is the Esper Blade with some of the touch of the blue-white Cawblade.
Yeah, this is pretty good. So it looks like Tony took game 1.
Yeah, Tony took game 1, and as I was talking about with Evan, it looked as though with the damage that Anthony was able to cause, Anthony did not have any damage hit Tony from creatures that game. He was able to virtually do 13 damage, but usually we were seeing in Los Angeles that people running Patrick Sullivan's deck, if they got in 5 damage at the beginning of the game, they could close out with the rest of it. But going from 15 to 0 is a lot different than going from 20 to 0 with Burn.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
Okay, they've shuffled up. They're looking at their hands. Anthony is on the play. Very important for him. Last game we saw that if he had been on the play, he would have had a Goblin Guide on turn 1. Instead, Tony was on the play, so Inquisition of Kozilek took care of that, and that was his only threat.
Yeah,
Here it is. Turn 1 Goblin Guide gets a Marsh Flats for Tony Chu.
Yeah, I mean, being on the play is... It sounds kind of obvious, but really being on the play is so important for the red decks. Now, it's not saying it's everything. You can still play a long game, especially if you're a refined red deck player. But it certainly becomes a lot easier when you're on the play and can just lay a Goblin Guide and serve. So Tony Chu leads with Marsh Flats into Swamp. Looks like we're getting going to Inquire with Kozilek here. So he sees Manic Vandal, Perilous Mirror, and... Is that a plated GOP all the way to the left? Or is that a Mark Immunity? I can't quite make it out.
I can't quite make it out. I see the Vandal.
Doesn't look like a card you see very often. Let's see.
Maybe we'll get another view.
Yeah, I'll get another view here shortly. I think it's plated GOP. The card it looks like to me most is Zektar Shrine Expedition, but I know that's not in his deck.
It looks like Zektar Shrine Expedition to me as well, but I know, like you said, it's not in the deck.
So unless we're about to give a game loss, it's not Zektar Shrine Expedition. Tony thinking very carefully about what to take. All right, as
Mark
it's
of Mutiny.
Okay, so it is Mark of Mutiny. Interesting sideboard card. It's I mean, it clears a blocker out of the way, and it's very good with Hero. If taking Hero Bladehold is awesome.
I think maybe he saw Hero and thought, you want to give me a hero, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
I need a hero. I'm in search of a hero. I'm Fro. I need a hero.
nice. Well done.
Yeah.
That's a cover, though.
Oh, well. Well, I was halfway there living on a prayer.
Now you're giving me some John Bon Jovi. Oh, wow. How old are you again?
I just turned 21 this week.
You're not in your 30s?
No.
We've got a
I just have parents.
Stoneforge Mystic going and grabbing a Sword of Feast and Famine.
Yep. Sword goes into Tony's hand. It looks like he's going to ship it back. I love how everyone has pretty lands. We keep choosing the correct feature matches based on the lands they have in their deck. All right, and there goes a burn spell on that Stoneforge Mystic. And let's see how Anthony's going to do some damage now.
There comes the Peaks, take 4.
And Goblin Guide serves in, crushing Tony's life total to 9.
Preordain on top.
Down
and
comes
Perilous Mirror.
It's
virtual 7 life then for Tony, even if he clears the table.
It's amazing how much, like, the red deck hasn't actually played very many cards, right? Like, spells. It's played Burst Lightning, Perilous Mirror, and Goblin Guide. That's it. And Tony's at 9 life. It just shows you how powerful all the individual red cards are these days.
Absolutely.
And then lands like Teetering Peaks from Zendikar just give you such an extra boost. Squadron Hawk from Tony Chu here will refill his hand. Grabs a Hawk. Now, earlier today, we had Shaheen Sorani tell us he doesn't like Squadron Hawk against the red decks. He feels like it's a liability. You play at the block, and they just are like, hey, yeah, Searing Blaze target. Now, Tony knows that there's not a Searing Blaze hiding in Anthony's hand, unless he's drawn one in the past couple turns. And there, except for the fact he just drew one. And that's exactly why Shaheen does not like it.
Down to 3 life. Another card there.
Marsh Flats off the top for Tony Chu.
And, now if he kills that Perilous Mirror, he's down to 1.
Yeah. I don't know how Tony's going to battle back from this one.
Hero of Bladehold.
And there's Hero. But I don't think it'll be enough.
I mean, all it takes is any burn spell and Tony is dead.
That's Smoldering Spires he just drew?
No, he does not have Spires in his deck.
I think it might have been Teetering Peaks.
I would love to see Smoldering Spires in this deck. I love that card.
So I think he just peeks the Perilous Mirror. Yep, and attack, and that's game.
And now that's it. On the board.
And Tony packs him in. Anthony Vaughan.
Oh, look at the smile. He's pretty happy about that one. I mean, obviously it's fun to win, but he had that nice little, satisfied look there.
Yeah. I love how 61 cards is now the new thing to do. We look at Tony Chu's deck, rocking 61 cards. It's funny, so, right, nobody will play 61 cards, right? Everyone's like, no, it's the worst thing ever. Patrick Chapin writes an article a couple years back. He calls it Russian roulette in Magic. It's like 61 cards. No, you can't do that. Nassif wins Worlds, but I mean, whatever. That's a fluke, right? Like they're like, oh, right. 61 cards, like perfect measure of 27 lands and the right number of spells, whatever. And now Jerry Thompson just starts annihilating these Star City Opens with Esper Blade, and they're like, hey, 61 cards. Yeah, Jerry's doing it. It must be good. And so now everyone's playing 61 cards.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've written about in at least 2 articles about numbers, about 61 and the validity that a 61 card deck can have. And usually the most valid reason for 61 is that cutting the wrong thing is worse than the small shavings of less chances on everything.
Right. It's the classic example of you get to a tournament, you start registering your deck and realize you have 61 cards. You don't want to just cut a card if you haven't tested enough because it could be totally wrong.
Yeah.
But if you tested a lot, you can probably figure out which card you should move down on.
Sometimes it takes so much testing to make the right choice on that, and it's based entirely on what a metagame might be. For example, if we were to take, let's say for the sake of example, Jerry Thompson's deck, right? Cutting 1 creature kill spell radically shifts the percent of creature kill spells that are in that deck.
Right.
And so in a certain metagame, that might be perfect. But in a different day, that might be the wrong call entirely. Tony Chu here is going to have the pleasure of the turn 1 play. I actually think that the entire match so far has been decided by the turn 1s of these two players, because they both had Inquisition. They had Inquisition versus Goblin Guide in both game 1s.
Right.
And in one case, the Goblin Guide got to stick, and in the other case, Tony Chu came first, and so the Goblin Guide went right to the yard.
Yeah, I mean, being on the play, once again, it's not everything, but it is a huge deal, especially when you consider turn 1 Goblin Guide is worth, 6, 8 damage if you don't have an immediate way to deal with it. And, being on the draw and getting Inquisitioned is like, your opponent just gains so much life from that. Doesn't look like Tony has Condemn. Yeah, he does not have Condemn. He does not have Disfigure. So, I mean, a turn 1 Goblin Guide is good for minimum 4 damage. Yeah. Now, when you're on the play, you can Inquisition it or just Doomblade it on the second turn or something. But we'll see what happens here. It looks like players are drawing their opening hands. Who do you think is favored after seeing the first 2 games play out?
Normally, I would say that Tony Chu would be favored. But one of the things I don't like looking at this, the 3 colors makes it harder. He also does not have very many creature kill spells, and he only has 2 core Firewalkers. So he does not have as many of the weapons that are important.
Well, we'll see. Tony leads on Darkslick Shores.
Oh, boy.
Looks like another turn 1 play for Anthony Vaughan.
If it's Goblin Guide, he's going to be happy.
Yeah.
He's going to be moderately okay if it's Spike Shot Elder, but if it's Goblin Guide, he'll be pretty happy.
I mean, any 1-drop in that deck is still good. We talked to Patrick Sullivan and Edison, and you talked to him some last week, too. And you said, anytime you have a 1-drop, okay, it is Spike Shot Elder, so not quite, but anytime you have a 1-drop, it's just does so much more work toward winning you the game. It's just free damage. But not doing so much free damage against that Stoneforge Mystic. Granted, he can probably swing in. Maybe Tony won't block. Maybe he will. You have to be careful.
If he swung in, if I were Tony, I would block in a heartbeat.
I would also block.
Yeah, there's very little reason. I mean, there's not going to be +1/+0 first strike coming from Anthony Vaughan. So.
Right. Sorry, I meant if Anthony had 3 lands in play, on the turn after this one.
Even then, I mean, eating up Anthony's turn, that's good times.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so right now, he's going to want to kill that and then swing in for 1.
Yeah, it looks like
Searing Blaze, perhaps?
Searing Blaze would be the card. That card is just so brutal when you think about it. 3 to a player, 3 to a creature for 2. I mean, and the landfall isn't that exactly like it's too hard to trigger, so cracks a land.
So the question is,
it's Searing Blaze. That's what it's got to be here. Yeah, blaze your Mystic, blaze you, attack you down to 16. And Tony's life total starting to dwindle. But there's Hero Blade hold off the top, and that card is brutal. Okay, Tumble Magnet. Do you think you tap the Elder here if you're Tony Chu?
No way.
You don't think you don't think so?
There are many more things you want to tap at some point.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm actually somewhat surprised that the Tumble Magnet is still in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't tap there, but I mean, he has another one in his hand too. He left at least 2 in. I guess he's just trying to prevent as much damage as possible. Let's see.
I think that the game can go later than I think Tony realizes it can. Sacrifices a land, goes down to 15. Has access to the Hero of Bladehold now if he wants to drop it.
Yeah, I would expect to see Hero here. Now, if Anthony... Now, that Tumble Magnet's going to look really good here in a second if Anthony has Market Mutiny. He doesn't look like he does, but... And yeah, there's Hero.
30 minutes to register for any more side events.
And we've seen the Hero pop up a couple times in this event, and every time I see it, it just looks so awesome. Like, why aren't people playing with this card already,
Yeah, this is a card that I think is good enough to be seeing play in Extended.
Yeah, I mean, that and the Oxid Ridge, both heroes are great. All right, and down comes Aaron Mesa. Now Anthony has a choice to make. I think he knows he has to kill that hero. The question is, how is he going to do it?
There's 2 options right now. His option 1 is looking at that hand and deciding now is the time to start trying to burn my opponent out. Option 2 is making that ability to burn someone out harder and in return, getting rid of that hero.
What would you do here? I mean, you've played a lot of red.
Yeah, I played a lot of... I mean, I would need to see his hand a little bit better. I think I saw a Stagger Shock. I think I saw a Koth and another land, and then one mystery card.
Right.
And that last card actually makes all the difference.
I know he's got a Burst Lightning.
Is it a burst?
Yeah, because it's textless.
Okay.
Okay, so he just decides to attack. Fearlessly.
Well, the attack actually, just declaring the attack, just kind of gives himself a sense of what his opponent wants to do here. I think now he's going to kill that hero.
Yeah.
I think he's going to sacrifice that Ember Hauler and cast a Burst Lightning and kill that hero.
I like keeping Ember Hauler in play and just throwing double Burst Lightning.
Is it double Burst Lightning he has in his hand?
I thought he had double Burst, but I didn't see Stagger Shock.
Yeah, I might have misseen it.
No, I can't tell what the card all the way to the back left is.
That's a Burst. In the front, I mean.
Yeah, all the way in the back there's a card, but
He's got a Koth in his hand.
I think he's got 2 Burst Lightnings.
2 Bursts, a Koth, and maybe that a Mark?
No, if there was a Mark, I don't think it's a Mark.
I can't quite tell what that last card is.
I think it's textless, so I think it's a Burst Lightning. All right, regardless, looks like he's just going to play Perilous Mirror.
Wow.
And now it's new plan, so he's going to...
I think he's going for the burnout, honestly.
No, 100%. So what's going to happen is he's going to block with Perilous Mirror, deal 2 to Tony Chu, and then he has 4, 8... I mean, that might be lethal in his hand if that's 3 Burst Lightnings.
If he can cast them all and have them all resolve.
Right. Plus he has that Ember Hauler, which is worth 2 points. I mean, it was a very calculated decision by Anthony Vaughan. He's got Ember Hauler to deal some damage, Spike Shot Elder to deal some damage. All right, so in crashes Hero of Bladehold.
Oh, look at that.
Oh.
Those are some tokens.
Wow. Still can't quite make out what that card is. All right, so yeah, it blocks the hero, and he's gonna shoot Tony for 2. I mean, I guess the other play is you can put Elder and Perilous Mirror on hero and trade both for it, but that feels like too much of a losing play to me. I think you have to just...
Particularly with those little soldiers coming up.
Right. I think you just have to just go for Tony's throat here and, you know, knock him down. And I'm sure somebody somewhere just made a joke about Anthony not having go for the throat in his deck, but... All right, so there's Gideon.
Is terrible.
So Gideon,
wow.
Well, Gideon's rough for Tony. I don't know if it's everything, but it's certainly rough.
I will tell you right now, if Tony Vaughan wins this game, it'll be a miracle.
Anthony Vaughan?
If Anthony Vaughan, if he wins this game, it's going to be a miracle.
Do you think he should have burned out the hero then?
Yes. I mean, like, the reason I wouldn't have gone for the kill at this point, his opponent still had a lot of stuff going on in his hand, and, like, having Tumble Magnet plus the hero. I mean... Right now, he has to cast, I think, a Burst Lightning for the dome if he's going to make it.
Oh, he chooses not to. Maybe he thinks Searing Blaze isn't out. Okay, draw Stagger Shock.
There's a Stagger Shock.
Maybe that last card is a Stagger Shock. I still can't quite tell. It looks like a Stagger Shock now that you mention it.
Like, part of the issue here is just how much damage can be done on the next turn by Tony Chu. I mean, if we look at that, he can attack with the Gideon as well, and with a tap, which means that Gideon can come in for 7, the hero comes in, and then 4 tokens come in, all pumped up. Yeah. And that's a lethal...
It's lethal, and that Tumble Magnet can tap both of Anthony's creatures.
Yeah.
So he has to throw away a burn spell somewhere.
I mean, not respecting the hero's ability to shift the game from defensive to offensive.
Yeah.
I think that... Yeah.
Yeah, I still would have killed the hero there on that turn. I mean, I'm not quite sure exactly what was in Anthony's hand, but even if he had to sacrifice the Ember Hauler, killing that hero just seems so important. All right, well, 2 have to live in the past. So 3 on Gideon. Drops Gideon to 5. Now it's a matter of what Anthony Vaughan is willing to do.
There it is.
All right, so there's the double burst on hero. A little late.
It does mean, however, that the game will last a little longer.
Well, not much longer. That's 8 points of damage right there. if Tony just has a way to buy a turn against Anthony's creatures, I'm pretty sure we just see him swinging for 8 here and drop Anthony to 6. And then, use Gideon to Abyss Anthony on the next turn. There's Creeping Tar Pit. All sort of feast and famine.
Oh boy. 3 mana, 5 mana. I wonder what that's going to go on to. It probably is going to go on to Gideon. Make Gideon into a creature.
Yeah. I think it
Rip
has
it
to go
up.
on Gideon.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another Tumble Magnet in Tony Chu's hand. All right, yeah, attack you.
Take 10.
Yeah, Tony's got this one locked up, I'm pretty sure. He's going to untap all of his lands, play a second Tumble Magnet.
I think it's still possible that Anthony could win, but it would involve Tony standing up and punching the table judge. So.
Not recommended.
Yeah. Tumble Magnet number 2. Very few things left for Anthony Vaughan here.
Except, yeah, I don't think.
Oh,
Teetering Peaks.
Teetering Peaks.
It's a good one, but not good enough. Yeah,
He just does not have enough mana to be able to make that Teetering Peaks into something dangerous.
Yeah. I think if he could kill that Hero Bladehold, he might be in good shape right now. But with that Gideon and the tokens and everything else going on, maybe if he didn't kill a hero, it wouldn't matter. I don't know. But
if the hero was dead, he would at this point be at 9 more life.
Right. Well, the question is how much more damage he would be able to deal to Tony.
Every team with 3 wins or more.
Anthony's thinking about it. Is there anything I can do?
To the middle of the stage where Tasha will prize you out.
Is there anything you can do? No.
I predict a hand will be extended very briefly.
With 3 wins or more.
I also predict that. Tony looks pretty confident in his position. Little hint of a smile crawling up his lips, and assumes crossed arms. And Anthony double checking. Yeah, okay, targets the Spike Shot Elder with Teetering Peaks. And, yep.
Tap, tap.
Tap, tap.
$10 draft number 11.
I don't think he can even kill that Gideon. Yep, that's game.
There we go.
That is the match. So, Tony Chu, very happy. Possibly the happiest player we've seen all day on camera.